But I really want to focus on what we're doing for self-advocacy, because I would think probably like most every other state or nationality that we talked about, there isn't enough being done. But we have fun. I've had an Inclusive AmeriCorps program. I've got a Step Up to Leadership Council, which is youth and adults with and without disabilities, mainly with disabilities. And we just got a great bunch of young people we like to get together once in a while. So these are some pictures. We did a summer camp, the picture on the far left, my left, you're right. So we do try to do fun events during the year. So you're going to see lots of pictures of them because that's what it's all about, teaching future self-advocates. A few years ago, every state, pretty much, I think most of the states, got to be part of Administration and Intellectual Developmental Disabilities. They did self-advocacy summits. So for us in Mississippi, they pretty much kept it in the South. So there were 6 states, and we met in Atlanta, Georgia. But they did it all across the country for every state. So eventually, everybody got to be part of it. And what it was is they want to find out what's happening in your state for self-advocacy. You know, California is different than Mississippi in so many ways. But there's systems and you know, sometimes you think, oh, it'd be easier to do stuff in Mississippi because we're so much smaller, and no, we have a lot of opinions. It's the same thing, the same issues y'all have, even though you're so much larger and larger systems. So this was a project through AIDD, who actually funds the USEDS. So I was blessed to be part of it and kind of coordinate. Long story short, got to pull everybody together. They have some direction for us, but I got to pull a team together. We got to travel in a bus. Fun. All the way to Atlanta, Georgia, which is about 6 hours from where I live. So it's me, the Council on Developmental Disabilities director decided to fly because her schedule didn't allow her. And then there was one of the other partners, Disability Rights, which is the Protection and Advocacy. She came along. She was sick most of the time. So it was me and everybody else. It was awesome. So I pretty much had the self-advocates, a couple of the young ones, they took over. They planned it all. The only thing I really disagree with is one of the leaders said that we have to eat at buffets the entire time because they were the most accessible. We kind of argued on that a little bit. But it was a really fun trip. It was an eye-opener. If you've never traveled, I don't have a disability. My children don't have a disability. Both my parents had a disability. So that's kind of my claim to fame in the disability world. And I think it's kind of important to share that sometimes. And I guess that's where my passion, my love, I've always had a disability-connected position on my jobs. So we got to go to Atlanta, Georgia. This was a picture of us. We had a wide variety of abilities, personalities. We had an awesome time and made friends for life. And what we found out when we went to the summit is we're not doing enough, period. The other states aren't either, but we're really not doing enough. So I'm going to kind of go through this. Y'all can read this. A lot of this is, I got a copy in your folder, a copy of the PowerPoint slide, and a nice little cheat sheet handy carry for you. I don't need to kind of go through every bit of this, but I want you to have the basic information and then kind of get to the good stuff. But this is a listing of who went. I will say most of these people are still on the advocacy team, but a few are not. And then at that time in Mississippi, and I'd like to stand here today and tell you it's changed, we don't have a true self-advocacy organization. By that I mean a self-advocacy group completely run by self-advocates. We still don't have one. We're close. So this was a few years ago, but we had TEAM, which was geared toward autism, LIFE, your Independent Living Center, the ARC, I'm sure everybody's familiar with the ARC, National Federation of Blind. They're all connected to national agencies. They do a lot of great stuff in the area of self-advocacy, but they're not completely run by self-advocates. Would y'all agree with that? Mm-hmm. I would agree with that. We still don't have a completely true self-advocacy group, but I'm going to explain what's been going on with that. That makes us a little unique, but not in a good sense per se. And I gave kind of information. This was the autism group, Federation of the Blind, LIFE, and then My Voice, My Choice, which was through ARC. So at that time, ARC had a grant where they were focused on self-advocacy targeting young people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. So each one of these slides is in there, but we were kind of, you know, this was our chance. These are from the actual presentation we had to do in Atlanta. So we had to go toot our horn, say what we're doing, what's good about it, and then kind of where we wanted to go from there. So serious slides, a little bit boring. We'll go through them quickly, promise. So we had to talk about, so this is, from a few years ago, what was going on in a self-advocacy organization. So, we had a lot of self-advocates getting more involved, and the self-advocates did most of this. I was kind of there as a liaison, offering self-advocacy opportunity to reach out to others, partner collaborating. There was some training going on, but it was hit and miss where it was happening. It wasn't statewide. It depended on the agency. You know what I'm saying? Y'all see that sometimes? You may have it in this area, but not in that area. So we had some good things going on. And we had some great self-advocates, some younger self-advocates, but they were on every single board, every single council. So it was kind of like, oh, Cindy will be at that. Oh, LaRon will be at that. So we had 2 or 3 people who were awesome, but they couldn't do it all, and they were doing most of it. I mean, that's not fair to them either, and we didn't want them to be the token self-advocates. I mean, be blunt there. So challenges and struggles, transportation, that's a whole nother presentation. Every state has issues with transportation, but in Mississippi, it's huge. We're a very, very rural state. Even in our populated cities like Jackson, our capital, it's still not very good. So that's a whole nother issue. But we had some good things going on. The kind of the step back support and learn from family members. We really saw huge needs. We had a lot of families who were hesitant, keeping their babies, whatever age, at home, and we might try some survey. Oh, we don't know if we want them to do that. And a lot of education needed to happen. Of course, funding, we stuck it at the bottom, not because it's the least important, because it encompasses everything. There's never enough money. So what are we proud of? We had some conferences going on. We had some self-advocacy things happening in our state. We were trying to relate, and that's kind of my area. I like to do the fun stuff. Recreation, from fencing, soccer, softball. So we were doing a lot of inclusive sports. That was really starting to grow in our state. And so we were using that as an opportunity to do some self-advocacy training and awareness as well. And then we had some organizations that were really focused on the self-advocacy. So goals and dreams, we need more money. We need more transportation, need more mentoring. We really had a dream that 65% of the persons with disabilities, we know about self-advocacy. So we were shooting for the moon a little bit there, increasing awareness for everybody. Well, plans are only good intentions unless they immediately degenerate into hard work. So fast forward a little bit to 2014. So what did we really do? Oh, let me say, this is a fun event. On the left is Rachel. In the pink, she is Miss Amazing. I don't know if y'all are familiar with the Miss Amazing pageants. They go on, about 32 states are involved, but she was Miss Amazing for Mississippi 2013 until 2014. So these are 3, and the runner-up, and then Alex in the middle, and Haley was first runner-up. So these are some of the young people I'm blessed to work with, some of my young leaders. I like to call them friends. So what was happening? So this is kind of repeat. Increasing opportunities. Yes, we were doing more. No, we're not doing enough. Having more opportunities to reach others. That was emerging. Partnering and collaborating. Emerging. The trainings, yes and no. We were doing some, but it still wasn't statewide exactly what we want. Increasing self-advocacy perspectives. Ongoing. So our goals, we still had a lot that needed to be focused on more. Still a dream or still needed. These are the same things we talked about just a few minutes ago. So when we came back, we're going to meet quarterly. We're going to get all this. You ever been that? You ever been on a board or connection where you've been to a conference where you actually get pulled together and you're so excited? That's the point of these. Hopefully I can get y'all a little excited today. We haven't got to the good stuff yet. You go back and you're going to accomplish all this, but then you get back to your job and you have 4,000 email, about 2,400 phone calls, et cetera. The boss is giving you a new project, et cetera, et cetera. You got to mow the grass because you've been gone for a week. All of these things, life takes back over. Well, that happened to us. So, and I was the one kind of facilitating. I got permission to kind of lead it, but I'm not a self-advocate. I'm an advocate, but I'm not a self-advocate. So I was kind of helping with this. And I actually had to ask permission to still help with it, and I almost didn't get it. So we were working on this. Well, people got busy. So we'd have a meeting, only 3 people show up. There's 12 of us. Not a huge number, but that's not half, not a good majority. So people got busy, they lost interest, we had no funding, leadership was only be self-advocates, but the people come to the meeting were me. I'm not a self-advocate, we're the other non-self-advocates. So we'd had 3 people there, but no self-advocates. That ain't a self-advocate meeting. So team, we didn't meet that much, so I wrote a grant to the Council on Developmental Disabilities. Y'all familiar with the Council on Developmental Disabilities? If you're not, I see some shaking hands. If you're not, every state has one. I like Jerry's 101. They get federal funding, a pot of money, and then within your state, you write grants to them. Okay. First thing I did is put money in there to have food. So every meeting we have food. I know that sounds cheesy. We had had less than 10 people at any meeting. When I send an email and say, here, pick out your menu item, people register. Sounds cheesy, but it works. People like food. I work with young people. Every meeting we have food. As you can tell, I like to eat. Food is very, very important. So we did that. We focused on self-advocacy training, but I targeted with the group we met. They helped me write this grant. I mean, I wrote the grant, but they helped get the mission, the purpose, objectives, activities. We focus on youth and young adults, so not all ages per se. And then we did training across the state in high schools and colleges, and we did one youth summit. So if you look at the picture in the far right, that was our youth summit. We had almost I think it says somewhere, almost 200 people. We did it, for once I did it where I live instead of the city of Jackson, our capital. But we invited youth with disabilities and others to come, and it was all about sharing stories. And I'll share a little bit more about that in a minute. But we did training. We had to do train at least 300 youth, young adults. We did over 447. We did an additional 233, and we did additional 247. So we knocked that out the park. We trained a lot. And we learned a lot, and I really felt we could have done a lot more. But that was kind of the goals they gave us. The other two things was really to focus on the council, but it was to have self-advocates being part of the team and then have an agency representation as well. We blew both of those out of the park. I mean, they were easy to meet. So that was no problem. So the team, we rejuvenized it. Food works. But these were the different agencies. It was a lot of the same ones. We added some. Only two are no longer involved, and the reason being is the gentleman that represented both moved to Texas. So we decided we didn't necessarily need somebody in that area because it was an autism-focused area, and we had another young leader that had autism that was representing very well in that area. So we met quarterly. We got chairpersons. That was all the first year. That's continued. We had the one summit, as I mentioned, statewide training, so those are ongoing. And then they became a full team. And so we're talking about becoming a 501(c) for funding purposes, but we decided not to pursue that at this point. But they've got their own email, phone number, they've got leadership. It took a lot to get to that point. It was me pushing and pushing and pushing, but they did it. They're awesome. So I'm very proud of that. The summit was in May 2nd, 2013. We had 175 attend, reservations for 200. As a gentleman from California knew, we've got bad weather in south central Mississippi. Most of the state, we've got tornadoes in 3/4 of the state. Just got a phone call from the school. My kids would be going home early today, so we had one of those kind of days. So I was glad we had that many come. So we had one summit, and we had true self-advocates. Mississippi self-advocates. No offense to any of you guys, but I didn't want to bring in self-advocates from other states. We have some awesome people in our state. We have the #1 person in North America for wheelchair fencing, #3 in the world. Had him come and share his story. And he'd only been fencing for 2 years. We had a former quarterback, sports coach come. He got in a car wreck. Now he does wheelchair sports, come and share his story. And then we had a USM, University of Mississippi, go Eagles, where I work, come and share her story. She was up here on Broadway, had just went and tried out, I don't know, my kids are Broadway. She went and tried out for something and had a really good, she really felt like she might get the part. She went up to her apartments. Apparently, y'all's apartments up here, a lot of them are like O-shaped, donut shape, and there was an empty place in the middle. She locked herself out of her apartment, so she thought she'd climb down from the roof onto the stairs. So she got up there and was like, no, I don't think so. Remembered turning around and didn't remember anything for a long time. She fell 6 stories on her back, laid there for 7 hours, almost died, had surgery after surgery after surgery. It's an amazing story. And she'll tell you she walks a little funny now. She can't dance like she does, but she's teaching yoga and she's doing some cool stuff. But she shares her story. It's really awesome. So hey, let's get her to come. So we used Mississippi people. It was wonderful. I enjoyed it. And the coolest thing is, one of the speakers didn't take quite as long as I thought he would, or should, or could. So we had extra time. So I had a lot of my young self-advocates there. So it was an opportunity for them to get up and share their story, if they wanted to, in front of 175 folks. It's actually more than 175. It's 175 plus all the agency people. So it's a little over 200. So they did it. So 8 of them did it. And they've never spoken to that many people before. So it's awesome. So given those opportunities, sustainability was great. So year 2, all right. I wasn't going to rewrite the grant. I was like, this is great. Got the team going. Y'all need to continue this. I don't even have to be part of it. If you want me to, I'd be blessed. But, well, it didn't happen. They were all like, oh, I don't know if we can, please. So, and actually that Council on Developmental Disabilities really was interested in us continuing for another year and trying a few more things out. So that was kind of great. So we rewrote the grant, $50,000, even less money this time. Keep the team going, do the summits, and do the training. So I kept the numbers pretty much. I raised them a little bit, but with the fund, we'd actually asked for more funding. But we were trying some different things. So kept the 335 young people. We're going to double that, if not triple that. That was the number they gave us. And then all the people in the teams, we've already increased the team. We've increased the connections there. So, but where are we at now? So what we did is we partnered with National Youth Leadership Network. Is anybody familiar with NYLN?
I knew it.
Okay. Well, remember I told you we were focused on youth and adults, right? Well, National Youth Leadership Network is one, if not the only, put that close there, national youth and adult-led self-advocacy organizations. They're 501(c)(3), they're completely run by young people. But one of their partners that lives in our state, Cindy Singletary, so we partner with them to do our training with us. So, I mean, I can get up here and talk to you guys all day long. I'm not a self-advocate. I don't quite, it needs to be young people talking to other young people, in my opinion. I can be part of it, help with it. So we partner with them. So Cindy Singletary, and she gives me permission to share this, I love her to death. She's a little person. She uses an electric wheelchair, and she has a service animal. And like she says, I get your attention when I come into the room. And she's spunky. So she comes in and she wanted to go in the room here, there's a table here. If she wanted to go around that table and there's not enough room, she'd move it out of the way. She'd knock it. She's not going to ask anybody to move the table for her. She's going to do it herself. Love her to death. She's like, I call her my little sis, my partner in crime. So she does the training. So this year we're focused on the high school level, again, for her to go into high schools and colleges, because we do not have a true self-advocacy curriculum being taught in the colleges. It's probably not happening hardly anywhere. In our state with transition, it's not a lot of information being shared, specifically on the transition to adulthood with self-advocacy focus. So we're trying to infuse that, letting these young future special educators, social workers, rehab therapists, whatever the case may be, know some about self-advocacy from a self-advocate. So we've done some audio recordings. So far we targeted the online classes, and I think we're going to continue that because everything's moving online in our state. I guess some other states are probably similar, but we're also going to do the in-person. She's doing those as well. So we're targeting that group. The high schools, going across the state to any high school that will have her and her team, basically. So we're targeting that. And the other things, I mentioned the summit. The summit went over really good. We had a lot of great feedback from the summit, but what we didn't have was representation from across the state. And so now we're doing 3. And let me tell you a kind of funny thing. I go with young people a lot. If I'm going to any state meetings, I invite my self-advocates to come because that's the best learning experience. If you can go, no offense to anybody here, my boss is not here, if you can go sit in a statewide meeting and be bored and act professionally, you're becoming independent. You're learning some great skills. Would y'all agree with that? Yes. So I think they should have that opportunity. So I let them know we're going to a boring meeting, but it's on this. We're going to try to make it exciting so y'all ask questions, be involved, because a lot of people don't. Think about that. How many meetings y'all go to? Some people sit there and never say a word. It happens so much. So I give them those opportunities all the time. Two or three of, I keep saying my self-advocates, I don't mean to sound like that. I'm so proud of them, but two or three of the Step Up Council, which I help with, are on the state self-advocacy team. So we go to meetings constantly. We went to a conference and spoke, did some disability etiquette, and we were sitting down at the table to eat, and they had the salad, and two of them, Mr. Jerry, I said, what? This salad's not going to fill me up. This is pitiful. This is the smallest salad I ever saw in my life. I was like, guys, this is just like the appetizer salad. There's going to be like another course with food, and then there'll be this, dessert. Oh, okay. But it made me think they had never been to a conference before. One of them was 18, one was 17, and there were various ages, but the ones that mentioned it. But I thought, thinking about that, it's funny, but it's a little sad. They had never been to a formal conference. Things we take for granted. We sit down, we know there's going to be more food coming, but it was their first time. So when we did the summit, I was determined we're going to have food served to them. It was a hamburger and chips, but it was served. Cost $12 a pop. But I was determined we were going to sit down and they're going to be served at a conference just like everybody else. And we did that. It was awesome. We're not doing that this time. Can't afford it. But we did it for the first time. This time we separated into 3 groups, and we're really just doing half a day versus a full day. And we're going to use young self-advocates from the different areas, and we're going to share stories. And then we're doing Self-Advocacy 101, where we took a lot of national curriculums. There's a lot of great stuff out there, NYLN. There's tons of information out there, but it's a lot. And then from what we've learned, we can't go into a school system and get 45 minutes or an hour and a half to do self-advocacy training. It doesn't happen. We might get 10 or 15 minutes. That's reality in my part of the world in Mississippi. So if we go in there and do 10 or 15 minutes, we'll be invited back again to do another 10 or 15 minutes. Doesn't sound like a lot, but it can make a difference. And so we've learned some lessons. So that I point these out real quick because we've just got a couple minutes left. We partnered for all of this with it's called the Step Up to Leadership Council. So if you don't get anything out of this, whoever you're targeting, and for us it was youth, young adults, let them be part of this. So the Step Up to Leadership Council is our leadership team, probably 85% young people with disability, 15% without, and a lot of university students as well. Let them guide you. And I have the link up there that's in your thing. We just became a university student organization because I work at USM. What that is, we get free space on campus. Used to be they tried to charge us and we couldn't afford it. So now we get the Pain Center. We can do wheelchair sports for free on campus. It's a big to-do. Our Valentine's Day dance we can do on campus. Promote teamwork, use the pair approach. So for a lot of things we do, we try to have a potential mentor with the self-advocate. So we try to do things where we bring in other people there so it's not just one speaker. Promote abilities and strengths. Everybody does, I know that, but we don't talk about our disabilities so much. Young people decide that. When I wrote the AmeriCorps grant, everybody familiar with AmeriCorps National Service? I wrote an inclusive grant targeting college students and realized I had a ton of young people with intellectual disabilities who were at home doing nothing. So rewrote it, we targeted them. And so they couldn't tutor, a lot of them. A couple of them could, but a lot of them weren't able to tutor other people. So we focused on the transition to adulthood, sharing personal stories. Self-advocacy was a huge part of that, how to go to college, how to do this. So we shared a lot of information. And then so I was all like, oh, we're going to do videos, and let's talk about our disability and how you've lived with it, blah, blah, blah. Mr. Jerry, what? I don't want to talk about my disability. I said, well, let's talk about that. Made perfect sense. They said, I'm Dan, I'm 19 years old. Yes, I have Asperger's, but Asperger's that's not me. I'm Dan, I'm 19 years old. So lesson learned, sometimes you get excited, but it was nice to be refreshed that way. So we talk about our abilities and our strengths only. If somebody asks about our disability, we will share it. And that's from them, not me. I don't make them do any of this. They make the rules. Use technology. We did a lot with iPod touches, cameras, Facebook, mini movies. I did want to show a quick movie real quick. Be diverse as possible. Even though we're focused on youth, young adult, we start at 14 and go all the way up to the 30s. A lot of that's federal government. Some of these early grants, they say 14 to the late 20s, so we upped it a little bit. Don't reinvent the wheel. Partner with your other organizations. ARC is awesome. Team is awesome. These other groups in our state. Just because they're not completely run by self-advocates doesn't mean they don't do great stuff. We have one group, they're waiting on their finalization. They'll become a 501(c), and it's completely run by self-advocates. It's called ABLE. So we're finally getting our first one. Yay! It's taken 3-4 years. But we don't have a lot of self-advocates who are ready to do that point. I'll be honest with you. They still work for a lot of agencies. Be creative, be patient, remember people first, and then educate. So let me show you something real quick, and we'll end on a video. So what we've learned, another major thing, the technology piece. As I was told, I told you I was 43. I was told about 3 weeks ago, only old people do Facebook. I was like, really? Because I really like Facebook, and I really got to be good at it. We have a Facebook page. Oh, no, it's Instagram. I was like, I'm not doing Snapchat. I refuse to do Snapchat. But Instagram, so we have an Instagram page too, but it's funny how you get told a lot of this, but it's true. A lot of younger people aren't doing Facebook. It's a lot of middle age. I got New York pictures on there already. I thought thinking about it, you know, we kind of do, and we connect with all my friends, and yeah, I guess it is getting toward, I won't say old people, but older than young. But it's kind of funny. Instagram, and there's tons of technology out there. There's tons of free stuff, and so I challenge you, use the free stuff.